work-life balance, as it's claimed to be in all these firms, and not just Ernst & Young, all these firms, is nonsense.
Wait. Not at Withum. Withum work-life
Sure.
balance is a real thing. I'm telling you, Withum is great with work-life balance. The big four accounting firms hire 70% of the accounting graduates. So you get accounting majors who want to be accountants, want to be CPAs, get a job with the big four. They hire 70% of the people. 90% of the people they hire out of school leave the profession within 3 years.
Welcome to a very special episode of the ThefunCPA podcast. And today on the show I have the one and only Ed Mendlowitz. Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey. Can you give us like a 1 minute intro to Ed?
I always wanted to be a CPA. My father was a CPA, and he had his own practice. He would go to clients, come home, have dinner, and then after dinner he would return his calls. And in between he would tell my mother what went on during the day. So I was a kid, so I overheard it. And then at night he would call his clients, and the gist of the conversations were that they didn't want to make a move or make a decision without knowing what he thought.
Wow.
And in my little kid's mind, he was an important person. If he's an important person, that means CPAs are important. So I'm living my dream.
Wow. That's incredible. And it's true. I do find myself, I graduated college 2010, so I've obviously been practicing about 15 years. And I find that we get, as CPAs, we get the most amount of loyalty and really true friendship, true advisory relationship. And you've been practicing for how long now?
Over 60 years.
Over 60 years. So it goes, for me, the name of this episode is 60 Years in Accounting, because the mentality that you had about your father and what you've heard, it's interesting to me. I got young children, so maybe my son is also capturing that too. But that mentality hasn't changed. I don't think that, I still think that our clients value us tremendously, want our approval, and run so many things by us. But before we jump into all that, where did you go to school, and where did your accounting journey start?
Right, I went to City College, Baruch College, which I am teaching. I'm an adjunct professor there now.
Amazing.
So that was never on my bucket list, but a series of events, a lot of things happened to me by accident that came by, and I took the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I went to Baruch College and teach at Baruch College, and
Nice.
That's my career.
And where was your first job out of school?
Out of school, I worked for a friend of my father. It's hard to get a job. I worked for a friend of my father, Mr. Turner, and I got fired after 7 weeks.
And why is that?
I should have told you what not to talk about. No, I got fired after 7 weeks. I was terrible.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I was terrible. I did everything wrong, and I was bad. And I'm glad I got fired. And probably I might have quit if I didn't get fired. And my ego was still up there, and here I am fired. So I started thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was trying to impress him. And he was giving me really menial stuff to do, which any junior accountant gets. And I was trying to impress him by showing him how fast I could do it. And I didn't listen to most of the instructions, and I rushed through everything, and everything I did was wrong. And I thought about it. And I realized, and I said, gee, if I'm that bad, maybe accounting is not for me. So I made up my mind, when I got my next job, I'm not going to make a mistake.
Wow.
I'm going to listen to the instructions, and I'm going to work very slow, and I'm going to get it right. And I got my next job, and that's what I did. And I was taken to a client in the morning. We did write-ups. So at 9 o'clock, I met him at 8:30, took me to a client at 9, told me I had to leave. I should be finished at 5. And I finished around 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And didn't understand why I finished early. I called them up. He said, well, if you're finished, I do this, this, and this. I left. Every day, this was repeated. And then he calls me up Friday afternoon and said, I want to meet you Monday morning, 8 o'clock for breakfast. So I met him at the diner by the office, and he says to me, "Do I ever make mistakes?" So I didn't know what he meant. So I said, "No." He says, "Well, the kid before you was working till 7:30 at night."
Yeah.
Say, wait a minute, you told me I had to leave at 5 and the guy was working till 7 o'clock. He says, well, the only thing I could think of, I went, every morning when I met you, I went back to the client you went to, checked you did everything right. And I couldn't understand why you got everything right and finished so fit. And then the only thing I figured it could be is you didn't make mistakes. Because the other kid, when you make a mistake, every mistake you make, it takes an hour and a half to find.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was an aha moment. And if you do it slow, you don't make mistakes, it gets done faster. And my whole career, that's the process I follow.
Wow. So how long were you at that job for?
Okay, this could be a story of itself. I was there a year. When I got the job, my first job was $85 a week.
A week? Wow. Okay.
And it was 1963. And then my second job was $80 a week, but I asked for 90.
Wow.
So the guy said, why don't you pay 80? I said, well, I want 90. I'm making 85. And they said, I'll tell you what. After 6 months, you work out, I'll give you the extra $10. The 6 months came and went, and he got the raise. So finally, it took me another month to work up nerve to ask him about it. And he didn't remember the conversation, but he said, all right, but I believe you. I'll give you the $10 starting the first of next month. And when I walked out of that room, I made a decision that the next time I'm due for a raise, I'm quitting.
Wow.
I'm not going to go through that again. So I basically quit that job after a year because of $10. I also made up my mind that when I have my own business, whatever promise I make to the staff, I'm going to remember. And I'm going to follow through on it,
That's
which
amazing.
I did. And then I got my next job with Friedman. It's Friedman. It was Friedman, Alpern and Green, and Friedman, Alpern and Green were there. So I got a job there, and I got my raise to $100.
Wow.
So I got my third job, but it was like a year and a quarter that I was working. And I was hired at $100, and then after 6 months, I got an automatic raise of $5, which was good. And then I asked around, I found out that everybody always got a $5 raise every 6 months. So I'd be with the firm 10 years, I would get $25 raises, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but what turned out was I was working way above the level that they hired me at. And I met two juniors that were there that I was working with, and we're all doing this crap work. But one guy is with the firm 3 years, one guy with the firm 5 years, and I thought I was a young hotshot because I did so well at the previous job. So after about a month before I was due for the next $5 raise, I went in and I told the staff manager that I want a $20 raise to $125.
Whoa.
Because I'm worth it, and I explained why I'm worth it. I thought I had a great meeting, and then the raise came, and I got a slip of paper that my raise was from $105 to $110, which I misread it, and I misread it as a $10 raise, and I went crazy. I go into I said, you give me a $10 raise, I wanted a $20 raise, I'm quitting. He said, don't get so huffy. By the way, look at the sheet again.
Oh.
And it was a $5 raise. He said, look, you're in the National Guard, you're going to get called away for 6 months active duty, no one's going to hire you, this is our policy, take the raise, don't quit, but if you're going to quit, think about it over the weekend. It was a Friday.
Wow.
So I came in Monday morning, I said, I withdraw my thing to quit, but I started looking for a job. And then the manager I worked with, he had just left, and he got me a job with a firm called Garber, Climate, Trachtenberg and Cornick, which is now Cornick, Garber and Sandler.
Oh, wow.
And then I got my $125 salary. And I did very well with them. And I was with them, you might say 4 years, but they split up after 2 years.
Wow.
But I went into the National Guard for 6 months. But then they split up. And I went with they split into 3 firms. I went with Bernie Kleiman. And I worked for him for about 2 years. Then I wanted to have my own firm. So I quit, started my own practice.
It's a wild journey you had, and it's good that you were fighting for yourself. I'm curious about really diving in now into that moment when you thought, that's it, this is it. Because obviously I've had that moment when I've realized I want to go out on my own. It was, you and I met in your office. We sat there, that was when I just started with Withum.
Yeah, you're in my chair.
I was in your chair, that's right. You told me, you're in my chair, and you weren't supposed to be there that day. That's why they put me there. But, to me, I remember that day vividly, because I sat there where I was supposed to get work done. I got no work done, because me and you were just chatting. But fast forward about, I want to say, a year or so after that day, I actually gave notice at Withum, right here. I gave notice, and I went out on my own. But that moment was very pivotal to me in so many ways, so many emotions. But from your perspective, what was it? Was there anything specific that made you feel like this is it, I gotta go? Or was it just an inkling that you've had over years? So walk me through the journey of you.
I had a different experience because, number one, when I was 13, I started a business.
What was that business?
I sold stamps.
Oh, wow.
I sold stamps, and then a year later, I sold advertising specialty. I sold stamps by mail order. Then I sold advertising specialties. So I had a business. But I always wanted to have my own accounting practice. And from the day that I started working, I started hustling up clients.
Nice.
And I built a pretty nice practice on the side. Now, in those days, you had to work 3 years before you could take the CPA exam.
Wow.
So I didn't have a credential. But in those days also, whether you were CPA or a lawyer, you needed a treasury card. You needed to become enrolled to practice before the IRS, which they still do. It's called an enrolled agent, which has become a very good profession right now. But I took the test to be an enrolled agent, and I passed it. So anytime someone would ask me if I'm a CPA, I say, no, but I'm enrolled to practice before the IRS.
Right.
And that allowed me to sign returns. I built up a nice practice on the side. The kids today complain. Mm-hmm. The kids complain, but the bosses complain more. And this is ridiculous. The kids complain they got to work on crazy hours.
Yeah.
And the bosses complain that they don't want to work 65, 70 hours. What kind of crap is that? When I worked, like for Friedman, I had to work. It's funny. They when they hired me, they told me the hours are 9 to 6. Don't forget, the bosses controlled everything. Today, I think the staff controls a lot.
Very true.
But he said the hours are 9 to 6, except during tax season, when the hours are 9:30 to 5:30.
Interesting.
So I said, wait a minute, you work less during tax season? He says, well, how much do you work less? I said, an hour a day. He says, 5 hours a week, right? I said, yeah. He said, you make it up on Saturday. So I had to work 5 hours on Saturday from 9:30 to 3:30, and not get paid. That was the deal. Plus, I had to work 2 nights a week, 3 hours a night, where I got paid. And that was it. I'm a single guy. I'm living at home. I worked 2 hours. I finished at 8:30.
Yeah.
I had time to date. Had time to meet people for dinner. I had time to handle my own clients. I had free nights. So it was very easy to moonlight and do that stuff. Today, and I got to tell you something, I didn't mind the hours. I didn't mind the work. Nobody minded. Nobody complained. Nobody. Today, everybody's complaining. Why would someone in their right mind stay in the profession when they got to work 65, 70 hours a week, three months a year?
Yeah,
it makes no sense. And then the bosses complain. The bosses are creating, and they complain about pipeline crisis. We're creating it.
Yep.
By the way, when I had my own practice, when I worked at Friedman, tax season started the first Saturday in January.
Yeah.
So I come in, and they had a little orientation.
Yeah.
Then the second Saturday, there was no work to do. But
It's
everybody's-
still early, right? Because
So I said, when I have my own business, I am not going to have anybody work unless there's work to do. So we didn't start weekends in tax season until the first or second week in February.
That makes more
In
sense.
fact, what we used to do, the last Saturday in January, we took all our staff to a private tour of a New York City museum, and then dinner, a dinner like at Virgil's, a nice place in Manhattan. And then we took them to a Broadway show.
Wow.
So while all their friends have been working 3 or 4 Saturdays, they're on a field trip in Manhattan. We did this about 8, 9 years.
Wow.
And then I also decided that if people work overtime for me, they're going to get paid. None of this Mickey Mouse stuff. So I found out later on that, and by the way, we had a lot of hours.
Yeah.
But the lot of hours were the week after March 15th until April 5th. It went down to the last wire.
Yeah.
And we worked literally, I don't know how many hours of work how many hours, but we worked more hours than firms that started in January. But the staff didn't mind it. They had to work. They got paid for it. And I found out later on that some of the spouses were telling their husbands, Eddie wants you to work, because they were getting paid in the next paycheck.
Yeah.
So why, if we're making people work during tax, if you pay them, they feel a lot better. You know, we talked before about this guy, Ami.
Yeah.
Ami worked for me. Now, I have not seen him in at least 15 years.
Yeah.
He called me up a year ago,
Wow.
out of the blue, and he called me up on April 16th. He said, I just want to thank you.
Wow.
He says, tax season just ended. I remembered working for you during tax season, what a great time we had, how much fun it was, how I got paid extra, and how you used to give us a bonus.
Wow.
On April 15th at 9, 10 o'clock at night, that's when we finished. And we would hand everybody, we got it up to, eventually it grew to $500 cash, which we didn't deduct.
Yeah.
And we give them all a gift, not a bonus, a gift. But and then my partner and I would run to the post office to get the stuff in the mail. Well, we'd have taxis lined up to deliver the tax
Right.
returns. We were doing Uber before Uber came about. We were hiring taxis to do it instead of messenger services.
Yeah. I like your mentality even back then, and I think there's so much to unpack about what you just said. So many things, because I think one of the first things that comes to my mind, it's so true. The problem, this pipeline issue, the things that all the partners are complaining about now, it's what they created themselves.
That's right.
Between the toxic culture that has existed in every single firm. Now, just for context, I've been at 7 firms before I went out on my own. And all these firms were similar. Now, the mentality that has started way back in the day, and this is what I really would love to pick your brain about and chat about, is like the differences that you're seeing from how things were. Now, when you started, I'm assuming it was green sheets, or am I dating?
What?
Am I like, were you doing stuff on those green sheets or ledger sheets or whatever they were called back in the day?
The ledgers were green sheets.
Yeah.
We had, I'm going to interrupt you. We had 7-column paper,
Yeah.
lined paper.
Yeah.
And when I started my job, and even this is years, for a couple of years, probably 3, 4 years after I started, one of the biggest thrills I got when I got a new sheet, a fresh sheet of pencil carbon paper that I put under the sheet before the cardboard. And when I did work, I would make copies of what I did. When I started in work, you know, I look old. People may think I'm old, but I don't think I'm old. But when I started, we did not have copy machines, did not have writing machines. In fact, I used to take a slide rule to clients to do percentages, which I was able to do, but no one else did that. In Friedman, they had one calculator, and these big calculators. People would wait online
To use it?
To use it,
Wow.
to do their percentages and stuff. I had that on my slide rule.
Interesting.
But what we did was fun. We didn't know about culture. Culture didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was the bosses and everybody else. And the bosses took advantage. But the way they took advantage, I told you how they took advantage at Friedman.
Yeah.
I had to work 5 hours for free.
Yeah.
But you know what? Compared to today, that's nothing.
It's true.
But it was fun. It was camaraderie among the staff. I'd say we had a good career, a good time.
Yeah.
We did things that you can't imagine being without. I remember the first electronic calculator we got. It was in 1969, December 1970. I had a partner, and he was able to get a hot calculator for $625.
Oh.
One of these electronic things that you could buy in ShopRite for $4.50.
With the tape?
No, it was
not tape.
electronic.
Oh, just
It was
electronic.
the first electronic calculator.
Yeah.
My first adding machine with a tape, I bought after my third tax season. I
Oh.
was moonlighting. And there was a guy at Longacre Machines. He would sell the calculators to all the accountants.
Yeah.
And I went to buy it after tax season. So he said to me, why am I buying it now? I should have bought it before tax season. I said, well, I had to make the money during tax season to be able to buy it.
Yeah.
And I had a portable electric calculator that had a tape. And it came with a case. I would carry it.
Yeah. A lot of the times when I speak to some of the folks that have been doing this for a while, one of the main things that everybody told me was, back in the day, there was a huge allure in the accounting profession.
It was what?
Allure, like people wanted to go into the profession. They were drawn to it. It was prestige. It was people, when you told somebody that you're an accountant back then, everybody looked up to you, and people really wanted to be in the profession. Like, it was a very highly sought after profession. And my question is, well, first, what do you find that contributed to that then? And how has it changed now?
All right, first of all, accounting was a very, well, I agree with you that it was very well regarded profession and very well respected, tremendous, equally as it is today.
Fair.
But when I went to college, the friends of mine who became accountants, I had two groups of friends in college. Those that wanted to be CPAs, and those that flunked out of engineering and switched to accounting. And the last thing they wanted to do was be accountants.
Mm.
And some of those, they even left accounting, became teachers so they could get a deferment from the Army. So a lot of people went into accounting because it was a job that they can get, and they had the skills. Very few loved it. And the reason you could know that very few loved it is because of the percentages of people who left public accounting after a number of years. Now, today, I just want to point out that the big four accounting firms hire 70% of the accounting graduates.
Yeah.
So you get accounting majors who want to be accountants, want to be CPAs, get a job with the big four. They hire 70% of the people. 90% of the people they hire out of school leave the profession within 3 years.
Yes.
Now, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, in the year 2022, for the year 2022, was designated one of the best 100 firms to work for. and I looked at the list this year, and they're also one of the top 100 firms to work for of all industries. In the year 2022, they had a 25% turnover.
Yeah.
And it was in their published annual report. So how does a firm with 25% turnover become one of the best places to work? So we have a high turnover. The accounting profession, I'm going to tell you a little story. I wrote an article that the women accountants are smarter than the men accountants.
Yep.
I wrote an article, and I got tremendous comments. There's a problem in public accounting. There's a problem. If you look for a problem, you'll find problem. The problem is we don't have as many women partners as men partners. Yeah. So why don't we have as many women partners as men partners? Because the women are smarter. The women, to become a partner at a decent sized firm, you got to work 65 hours a week, at least 3 to 4 months a year.
Yeah.
Not counting all the other stuff. And you don't get paid for a lot of it, and a lot of it is at the boss's discretion. Women don't put up with that crap.
That's right.
They leave. They say, I'm not putting up with this. A very close friend's daughter wanted to be a CPA. Her father was a CPA. She got a job at Ernst & Young in New York. No, she got a job at Ernst & Young when she graduated college. Smart girl. She was hired by the office in Metro Park, and she bought a new car. She was excited. First day, they said, we have you work at a client. She had to work at a client in Manhattan, on the east side of Manhattan. So, of course, she never used the car. She was commuting almost 2 hours each way. She's with them 8 years. Wow. She loves it. She's doing great. They love her. She had a baby. She got married. She had a baby. She comes back after maternity leave. Her boss comes in and says, look, we know you had, this is Ernst & Young. This is, you look at their brochures. I hope you don't put
look.
You look at their brochures, how friendly, how work-life balanced they are. Read their brochures. Listen to their CEO speak about work-life balance. Her boss comes over and says, look, we know you had a baby, and we know you want to spend more time at home. You only have to clock 50 hours a week.
Oh, how nice. 50 hours.
She was clocking 60 hours a week. They said, you only have to clock, plus the 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at home. She was leaving 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, getting home at 8 o'clock. She quit.
Of course.
She got public, she was very upset. She had to quit public accounting. She got a job, a local job where she lives, in a private company. It took a year to adjust to the change in the climate. The intellectual atmosphere was much greater in accounting. The dynamicism, the interaction with clients. It took her more than a year to adjust. She's adjusted fine. It's a job now. It's a job. She doesn't have a career. But Ernst & Young did it to her. If they would have said, look, work 40 hours, do something. But they are looking at it from their standpoint, not from the employee. People work for me. I looked at it from their standpoint.
I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and I'll say this to the camera, because I think that work-life balance, as it's claimed to be in all these firms, and not just Ernst & Young, all these firms, is nonsense, most of them.
Wait. Not at Withum. Withum work-life balance is a real thing. I'm telling you, Withum is great with work-life balance.
Yes, sure. However,
I'm serious.
From my experience, let's just say it wasn't that. But here's the thing. Some try, and I will give Withum the fact that they do try. I have heard similar stories across the platform with working mothers, and it's challenging for them. For working mothers, and like you said, women in general, there's this pivoting moment in their careers where they have to make a choice. Because most firms will want those crazy hours. Most firms will want to go from 60 to 50 is as if they're treating them to this amazing deal, but it's across the board. And I think what we need to do, and I think to me, in my perspective, to fix this pipeline issue, we've got to go back to the basics, which is to treat the staff and employees and workers like humans. Right. Because I think that is missing across the board, unfortunately, in many places. Now again, I will say, some do it better, some do it worse. Top 100 is a tough place to be, but that, if we want to fix the issue, we got to go back and say, okay, look, let the people work on what they want to work on. This is one thing that I struggle with. If, and this one might be a little bit difficult because it is a demanding career, right? It is a demanding career, demands the hours. It demands you to sit, to be there to do all those hours. But to me, the main issue was, hey, pushing raw billable hours is just a silly thing for the pure fact of utilization.
I'm gonna address it, but I want to tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you a story.
Yeah.
About a woman named Laura Whitman.
Yeah.
Who's a partner at Withum. She had her third kid, and she goes to John Morrison, who you know,
Yeah.
and she gives notice because she wants us to take care of the kids. So John says, "Why are you giving notice?" He says, "I can't work." He says, "Why don't you work 15 hours a week?"
Wow.
And you could work at it. This is before COVID, before all this other stuff went on. He says, you could work the 15 hours at home. We will give you work to do that doesn't have great deadlines, that doesn't have deadline pressure, but don't stop working.
Yeah.
She worked the 15 hours, and I would say after about 5-6 months, I lost touch with her. She's not here. I'm working in the office, and she's in one of the offices working.
Yeah.
I says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I had to get out of the house." She ended up, the kids got old enough, she comes back to work on a part-time basis, more than 15 hours. She's now a partner today. And I got to tell you, Maureen DeSico became a partner, I think, in 2006.
Yeah.
It was after I joined Withum, and I was on the committee because I was a partner then. She was a part-time person. She was working part-time for 20 years, for 15 years with them. They made her a partner because of her skills, the personality, her relationships. They made her a part-time partner.
Yeah.
So Withum walks the talk. Now, I want to talk about the pipeline. This is something that I've been thinking about a long time, and I actually did it when I had my practice before I merged.
Yeah.
I merged in 2005. Every managing partner that you know in every firm,
Yeah.
no matter what size firm, has like an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
They all do.
Yeah.
Now let's take a partner that handles a book of business. They don't run the practice, they run a book of business. Why can't they have an administrative assistant to make their job easier?
Yeah.
Now, if each partner, and if the firm doesn't want to spend the money, so they can have two partners share an administrative person. Now, we're reading about Doge and all this other stuff that's going on, where they're firing all the administrative people.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying everybody that's an administrative person or everybody that works in every job does a great job.
Yeah.
But if you take, you have high-level partners that are responsible for $4 or $5 million of work,
Yeah.
and that have 10 staff under them. Plus they're mentoring the staff and they're marketing with the client. Why can't you hire an administrative assistant? So it costs you $80,000, $90,000.
Yeah.
Make them a glorified gopher, make them an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
You could pick up 20% of their time. If they spend 1,200 chargeable hours a year,
Yeah.
they don't spend more. They spend 1,200 chargeable hours. You could pick up you take away 240 hours of crap work that they do, and you have an administrative assistant. For $80,000, you're picking up 25% of a partner.
Yeah.
Because you're getting 240 hours more you're picking up 20%.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. The 1,200 hours they're working, they're doing 960 real work and 240 of crap work. You're getting rid of the 240 crap work. You've got 240 divided by 960. You're picking up 25% more productivity for a cost of $80,000 of a guy that's probably making $750,000.
Yeah. I think the math's there.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And that will make the higher level people, Now you have a senior manager. So you get one administrative assistant for 3 senior managers.
Yeah.
You know, firms have retreats. They have lunch appointments. Partners have lunch appointments. They have to arrange for CPE. They might go to Las Vegas for a conference.
Yeah.
Let the administrative assistant do it.
Yeah. 100%.
Let them and have someone at your beck and call to make sure that you follow up on phone calls with people. They keep your calendars for you.
Yeah.
That makes it easy at the high end. The low end, pay the people for the extra work. You work 40 hours a week. That's your job.
Yeah.
You work 60 hours. I'm paying you for the extra 20 hours. Number one, I bet you that they won't work 20 hours anymore. The boss say no, only work 10 hours.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is eliminate errors. I eliminated errors in my prior practice. That's a whole long story. We eliminated errors.
Yeah.
Everybody during tax season spends at least 1 day, 7 hours a week correcting errors on tax returns. The preparer spending the time, and then you have the reviewer
Yeah.
spending the extra time reviewing. Eliminate errors. You're going to pick up 7 over 60. You're going to 7 hours over. You're picking up 10, 11, 12% more time. You're picking up a day a week extra by eliminating errors. Why can't you eliminate errors? I got news for you. You can, because everything in accounting is you're taking numbers from one place and you're putting in another. And by the way, we have electronic stuff. Everybody should be state of the art. They should have smart scanners, all this stuff. We have required worksheets. Fill out the required worksheet. Look at it when you finish filling it out. It can be. I know it can be done because I did it.
Yeah, I think the main challenge nowadays that I've seen when I was at the bigger firms, is the technology coming in. So like the smart scanners were amazing to me as a manager at that point or a senior at that point, and outsourcing had its own nice things attached to it. I'm curious about the impact now to the staff, to the entry-level staff, that they're no longer inputting things by hand. And to me, I honestly still do it in my practice now, just because I don't have that many clients and I can take the time. But to me, inputting things by hand taught me a lot. You get a W-2 and you put in the numbers, and then you see where it goes. Now entry-level staff are almost forced to already be kind of more in that review mindset of hey, okay, the system, scanned in the W-2, scanned in this. Now I got to review things. What is your take on that and what that'll do to the future staff with AI technology and all that?
When my father learned to drive a car, and when I was a little kid and he drove a car, he wanted to make a right turn. He stuck his hand out the window and make a left turn. He stuck it up. All of a sudden, they came out with a button, a thing on the car where you want to make a left turn and a right turn. Yeah, we don't do work by hand anymore, but you can train the people in understanding what's on the return. I give you a very simple thing, but it's a lot more to it. When someone finishes a tax return, they should look at every page on the tax return. We don't require that. Now, you did the W-2, you did all that. If you have technology, you're not going to do it. I wrote up the books. So conceptually, the staff doesn't know what a set of books looks like anymore. They get a printout. I'm teaching accounting. I'm teaching accounting in college. And in the textbook, they talk about trial balances. We don't use trial balances anymore.
Yeah.
It's all updated printouts with the journal. It's the training.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you about the training.
Yeah.
You have training in your firm, and you staff has to have CPA.
Yep.
You do all CPA in-house, or you send them to CPA given by other people?
Well, I personally do not have staff, just for the record. But for me, previously, it was when at the firms, it was either or CPE or go out to
Okay.
to that. Or now there's also, they're going to have these stuff where you can listen to a podcast and get
All right,
CPE for
let
it.
me tell you something. You have a kid
Yeah,
that's a year out of school doing tax returns.
yeah,
We send that kid to the society has an all-day tax update conference, all day on Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah.
Thursday, and he send the kid to that course. Of these 8 hours that kid's going to be there, maybe 2 hours is relevant to what he's doing.
yeah,
Then you have a manager or the reviewer, and you send the reviewer to that, and there's maybe an hour that's relevant to the manager.
yeah,
And the societies don't offer this. What you got to do is you got to tailor. I did this when I had my New York practice I left my New York practice in 1988.
Yeah.
Had 50 people. I started with one guy in 1974, and we left in 1980. We had 50 people with just a third partner.
yeah,
We're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and we were training. We had our own, and CPE was a mandatory. We had our own in-house training program, and we made it relevant for each staff level what they were doing. Make the CPE relevant, and you could train what we're lacking because of the technology,
Yeah.
because of the jump from the manual to the technology. What you said we're missing, you're right.
yeah.
But there's ways of making it up, and there's ways of teaching it to them.
I like that.
I'm teaching an entry-level accounting course.
Yeah,
So I'm teaching the course. Every student has to get a 10K. So I have 75 students. Of the 75 students, they have 40 different companies' 10Ks.
Wow.
There's some duplication. Some of them pick companies I never heard of.
yeah,
But when I teach the balance sheet, they have to look at their balance sheet.
yeah,
When I teach the P&L, the cash flow, they look at their statement, and then I show
That's
them
all.
in the notes how it explains it. And when you have Ford and the other student has General Motors, and Ford has a one-way General Motors, or the working capital ratios are different, we talk about. What the students are learning is that what we're teaching in school is real-world stuff.
yeah,
They're not looking at how to, of course they learn that the assets equal liabilities plus capital.
Yeah.
And they learn, I don't mention the word debits or credits till the third week.
interesting.
But you got, by the way, there's 1,300 students that take uniform exams
Yeah,
for this course. I have 75. My students' average was 91. Another professor who we're friends with, her average students got 75.
wow,
So why? Maybe she's not as good as she should be, but and maybe I'm a little better than I should be. So the average overall was 85. So mine was 91. So there's a way of doing it that gets through that makes it relevant, and we have to make the training that, and we don't do it.
yeah,
And it's easy now. A firm like yours, I had a firm like yours, I had a small firm. I did my own training.
yeah,
It cost money, but I had, I merged with Withum. I had 8 accountants.
yeah,
I was doing SEC work.
Wow.
We were in the SEC practice section
Wow.
of the CPA. All 8 staff started their job with me.
wow,
They learned everything they knew. They learned from me. It can be done. It takes resolve. It takes a plan. It takes patience, and it takes adherence to the plan. You go to McDonald's. When you eat food, you eat bad food, you could die. You can get sick. The largest restaurant business in the world is McDonald's, and they have nice people working there, but they're relatively low-level people.
yeah,
People trying to fill in, school students, older people retired. You eat bad meat from them, they could be out of business and you could get sick. But everybody trusts because they have a system. You could get a Big Mac, in India, China, or Brooklyn, it's going to be the same Big Mac.
It's true.
And it's the system that makes it successful. And the accounting firms have the systems, but they don't make the people follow them. The ones that make the staff follow the systems are successful.
Yeah. All this conversation really brings me down to another kind of interesting realm in the bigger firms.
Could spend 2 more hours.
We got, we have with the pipeline issue and everything there, because I want to focus on also like the staff and the seniors in the profession and managers too. I know we talked about senior managers and partners, but a lot of times and a lot of the commentary that I get in my messages through LinkedIn and all this other stuff is a lot of people are feeling like they are over it. They're burnt out. They're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They're not understanding what it is that's awaiting them and why they should stick around. What would your advice be to somebody who is like just down and overworked, feeling burnt out in whatever firm they're at? What would you suggest to them to kind of push them forward?
Okay, number one, my staff never felt that way.
Right.
If someone left, which was rare, but if they left, they went to another accounting firm. If they moved to another state, they went to work for a CPA firm.
Yeah.
It's the attitude of the bosses. If the bosses say, "Oh, we're going to have tax season. Oh, you're going to have to work all these hours." What's takeaway from the staff? The partner say, the best time of year is working tax season. You're a young person. You're going to get to see how people make their money. You're going to get to interact with clients. You work on an audit. You're never going to speak to the client.
Yep.
Never going to speak to the controller. Here you're going to end up talking one-on-one with some of the clients. You're going to see how they make. Clients are going to have questions. They're going to ask you the questions.
Yeah.
Your job is to not answer the question, but to tell me the question.
Yeah.
And I'll call them back. But if the client doesn't ask you any question, you're not doing your job. It's a fun thing, and you're going to make money. You're going to make a lot of money because you're going to make a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
You're going to make X dollars. I don't know how much you're going to make overtime. You're going to make $10,000-$15,000 overtime. I'm going to make a fortune during tax season. Someday you'll be a partner. You have your own practice. You're going to make a fortune.
Yeah.
And pay guys like you $10,000 or $15,000. It's the attitude.
Yeah.
And when you word it the way you worded it, you're dooming for failure. Yeah. And when you could speak to Ami, who you know.
Yeah.
He called me out of the blue to thank me.
Yeah.
And maybe he's not so happy. I know. But he thought of thanking me. It's the attitude. It's how you treat everything. For a staff I made up a list of 10 great things about tax season. And I passed it to some of the staff. One of the young ladies, she's now a partner, Sarah says to me, "Oh, you left out something." I said, "What?" She said, "You get free dinners."
Yeah.
So I have a list of about 12 great things about tax season. If you are a young person and you make a mistake on an audit, chances are you're never going to find out about it.
Yeah.
They're going to fix it, and you're never going to be told. You make a mistake on a tax return, you're going to hear about it the next day or 2 days later, and you're never going to make that mistake again.
True.
You're going to learn, you're going to grow. Now, I've had staff come to me, they didn't like my procedures. The nerve of not liking my procedures. And I say, "Why? What don't you like?" And sometimes they were right. I said, "Fine, you know what? That's our new procedure." Yeah. And I would go to everybody in the office. Go to my partner first and say, "We're going to change the procedures." "Yeah, whatever you do." And I go to everybody, "This is our new procedure."
Yeah.
It's on-the-job training. It's instant feedback. You could change systems like that.
Yeah.
If you have a 200-person firm, you can't do that. But if you have a 10-person firm, a 20-person firm, a 2-person firm, you could do that. And I did that. And it works. Plus, you're empowering staff to make suggestions and to say things. And you're also empowering them that it's not so bad making a mistake.
Yeah. So I think what I'm getting out of that here is the advice to somebody who is in the trenches, who's feeling a little bit low, is my guess maybe to reevaluate where you're at. Think about, to me at least, this is from my experience, to me when I felt that way, I thought to myself, I'm learning a ton of information. I'm benefiting the future me. Whether the future me becomes a partner, because in my opinion, I don't think staff are coming into the profession anymore thinking they're going to go and become a partner. I think they're coming into the profession now because, they're going to learn a lot. It's short term. It's short term benefits to them at the moment, but they're not looking at it like, I'm going to stick around here for 15 years and make partner.
Withum has, I don't even know how many partners they have anymore. They have about 250 partners.
Yeah.
We're a big firm. Half of the partners at Withum started with Withum or the firm that merged into Withum. Half of the partners. That contradicts everything you said. You work for the right firm, you have the right opportunities. You would have not been someone I would have hired, nor would I ever hired myself.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I would not hire someone that worked for another firm. You worked for 7 firms. I worked for 4 firms.
Yeah.
I would never hire you and me. But
it's a good thing. It's a good thing I didn't
I
interview
hired
with you.
people out of school because I wanted it done my way. I wanted them the right training. Small firms don't want to hire people out of school because they don't want to. They want people with experience.
Yeah.
So they get someone that worked 2-3 years for a firm, looking for a job, and they ask them, "Why are you leaving your jobs?" Well, I'm leaving because I wasn't getting good experience. You're hiring someone with experience who are telling you they didn't get good experience. How is that logical? How does that make sense? How is Ed Mendlowitz going to make money hiring these my wife told me to watch my language, these crapheads. It's the trend. Now I want to tell you a test.
Yeah.
You tell any young person, this is my test to my students, who not all of them are accounting students, but it's a graduate course or an MBA course, or now I'm teaching the basic accounting, but it's required. Ask somebody who's in their who's in their 50s, who was an accountant. They could have been a private or public.
Yeah.
Ask them how they like their career and what they think of their career. Now I'm telling you that the people who were in private accounting tell them it's great career, good money, everything was really good about the career. You speak to the person in public accounting, there's a passion.
Yeah.
And you look for the passion. If you don't see the passion, it's not for you. If you don't have the passion, it's not for you. If you want to have the passion and you don't get it, go to another firm.
Yeah.
Go someplace else. Or do what you and I did. We started our own firms. But you look for the passions there. The people who are in their 50s, or people even that are retired. I use 50 as the thing. Don't go to someone who's 40, but you go to someone in their 50s. The ones who are in public accounting, whether they're partners or not, have a passion for what they did.
Yeah.
And the people who in any other field don't have the passion, it's not the right thing. We got to teach the passion. We got to give them the passion. We got to train them.
Yeah.
We got to have the culture. But just think about Withum. Half of Withum's partners started with the firm. That means you're training people. You're teaching them how to hold a pencil. I haven't used the pencil in years, by the way. But
the only thing I'll say, I'll push back on on that, because that is the older mentality. Nowadays, yeah, I agree with you now that there's a lot of partners and a lot of them started with the firms, but you're still getting the folks that were, started their career in the 80s, 90s, maybe 2000s.
We're hiring.
But I'm saying the ones that are becoming partners, you're saying they're becoming partners and they started.
Someone became a partner 2 years ago, is with them 10 or 11 years.
Yes.
Started as an intern.
But so that'll be around the time, like I would have been a partner now, probably, wherever I would have started my
you switched
career.
around too much, probably not.
Yes.
You could have got the depth of experience that you might have needed technically. You might have had the experience to bring a business.
Yes, but my point being is now I'm talking about the
now
students
he's
now.
Now he's going to be mad at me.
No, because you're right. Yeah, the reality of it is I wouldn't have made it that far anyway because I wasn't cut out for the bigger firms. But that said, I'm talking about the students now, the staff now. The staff now that are coming in, they're not doing what we did in 2010 and thinking that we're going to become.
Different. The staff, when I started, my first boss,
yeah.
I remember the first week telling me, I remember standing with him. I remember where we were standing. And he said to me, the kids today are not like they were when I was starting out. We had more energy, we had more this, we had more. And it's the same thing that the guys say today to the young kids. Let me tell you something. There are tremendous people in public accounting today that are in public accounting 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
There's not a different generation. They love it. There are a lot of people who started out who hated it and left it. But the people who stay in it love it. You can't, look, one of the bad parts about COVID is I stopped coming into the office and hanging out. I would have lunch with the young people. I'd take them to lunch. I'd go to, in fact, one of the young guys sent me an email over the weekend. Next time I'm in the office, he would take me to lunch. Of course, I'm in the office, but I'm not going to go to lunch with him today. I'm going with my wife. But these kids are driven. They're excited. They love it. They create value for the clients. They get appreciation from the clients. They get good raises. They get good promotions, good positions. They're taught they're taught business skills. They're taught social skills.
100%.
They're taught how to dress. You can't believe what's going on. Now, it's a small exception, but you know what? When I started, it was a small exception too. Most of the people start in public accounting. They don't stick it out. They don't stay. So today's leaders, tomorrow's leaders are working in the CPA firms today, and they're going to be powerhouses, and they're much smarter than I was.
100%.
They're more tuned in. They're more hooked into the new technology. Not that I'm not, but they're leagues ahead of everything.
Yeah.
I asked talk about different things. I asked my students, but they don't read books. They don't read books. Now, I'm an old guy. I read books.
Yep.
The young people, they don't read books. They spend 2 hours a day on social media. My students.
Yeah.
But they don't read books. But there's different ways of communicating, and the different ways of communicating are working. I just signed up for an Instagram account. And
There we go.
And I just
I'm tagging you.
I just did my first only YouTube. I did a YouTube lesson for 10 minutes that I showed it to my students. I'm in the classroom with them. I could have read it. I could have said. I recorded on YouTube and I showed it to them on YouTube because I wanted to do that. But there's different ways of connecting, there's different ways of them getting their information, different ways of learning.
Yeah.
And we have to adapt to that. But it doesn't mean that what they're doing is worse. It's different.
Yeah.
It could be better. It could be worse. But no worse, it's the same. It's just different.
I think that it's all about the motivation that we give. So in my context and what I was referring to, it used to be for me and for many others that were along with me for the ride. It's like we saw the partnership as the carrot at the end of the stick. We were excited for that. That's what we kind of wanted, and we're willing, to grow, to take whatever. The students now just need to be motivated a little bit, and the entry-level accountants need to be motivated, I think, in a different way. And the way you motivate them is we listen to them. We hear what they want to do, what they want to work on. Because me personally, I still love the profession. I think there's so much to learn at all these big firms. I'm a big proponent of them. But what has to change, in my opinion, is just the approach and the mentality of the old school mentality that says, you're here now, you're going to grind because in 10 or 15 years you'll become partner. That mentality's got to go and be replaced with, hey, how do we make the experience better for you, for your learning, which is what as we talked about before, and how do we help you grow so you enjoy it? Not in your mind, I'll enjoy it in 15 years, but in my mind, I want to enjoy it today, tomorrow, for the next year, so that I'll be here for that time span.
That mentality exists today, but it's a small number of partners, again, and it's mentoring and coaching a small number of staff. But it was like that when I was starting out. There was a small number of partners that saw it that way, and there was a small number of staff that they saw that spark or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So probably the numbers are the same today as it was then, because I never charted this, but there's less than 5% of people who start in public accounting probably become partners, maybe smaller percent. Whatever percent it is today, it was that same way 60 years ago. It's not every partner is going to be a winner. Not every partner is going to have a great personality. Not every partner is going to want to spend time mentoring staff. You know what I did with staff? I had staff. I had certain staff that I got friendly with. Forget about my old firm. At Withum, my old firm, I hired everybody. I trained them from the diapers up. But I got friendly with certain staff that I saw spark, and I would I would have them shadow me to interesting meetings, an M&A meeting, a succession planning meeting, evaluation meeting, stuff they weren't working. I'd have them come with me, and it was, the firm supported it. The firm let me do whatever I wanted to do, and supported it. But I did it, and maybe a couple other people. A guy like Bill Hageman, he did it. He was great at that, but not everybody did it. There were some partners who sit in their office all day, and they don't. Bill, when he was managing partner, he knew he walked around. Ivan Brown, we talked about Ivan Brown knew the name of every single person in the firm.
Yeah.
You couldn't walk up to him without him saying hello, whatever your name was.
So yeah.
Bill Hageman did that. There were very few superstars. These are the people who come to manage, the leaders in the superstar. But you can't say the profession exists or not going to exist because of the deadheads that are running the firms. I had a friend. I was in Las Vegas a number of years ago, and the day I used to, when I was younger, I would get to Las Vegas. I wouldn't go to dinner till 8 o'clock at night. I'd go gambling and everything, and then at 1 o'clock I'd go back to my room. Then I got older, and I would get there. 5 o'clock I would go for dinner because it would be 8 o'clock my time. And there was a guy from a firm, a nice-sized firm in South Jersey. So I saw him say he had dinner with me. So he's talking about tax season and the hours. I said, "What are you doing that for? It's not going to work." I was talking what you said they should. Is, well, I did it. They got it. I said, it's payback time. Now I understand it.
Yeah.
That firm never grew a day and never grew a person from the day I had dinner with that guy, while Withum has grown 5 times.
Yeah.
The attitude is there, the passion's there, but not everybody.
Yeah.
And don't measure the firm, and don't measure the growth, and don't measure the pipeline by the deadheads and the people that are not. If 90% of the 70% that the big 4 hire leave, the ones that make it become partners. I had a kid who was an intern for me. He's now a partner at Ernst & Young.
Yeah.
He worked for me. He liked public accounting. He stuck it out, whatever it was. You get past a certain point in these firms. He's a very successful partner today at Ernst & Young. But I got to tell you something. He was an intern. And when he graduated, I made up my mind when he graduated, I was going to pay him $10,000 more than his best offer.
Yeah.
He had brain power, he had the personality. Of course, he moved away. He went to college out of town. He met a girl and he stayed there.
Yeah.
So I never had a chance to hire him, but he's very successful. They're there. The big 4 elevate partners every year. It was started with them.
Yeah.
You're looking, you and everybody else talking about the doom and gloom in the profession are looking at the losers, the people who are not happy, the people that were dissatisfied, or the people that got passed over for being co-managing partner. Instead, they're stuck reviewing tax returns or whatever job they have. It's the wrong. We got to look at it the winners. And you're running a firm, you got to be 100% cheerleader 100% of the time.
Yep.
There should be not one bad word about public accounting in any respect coming out of your mouth.
I think more importantly, we need to call out the issues as they're seen. So I disagree with that strongly.
You're looking at you're calling it out. You're looking at you and I could look at the same thing and see 2 different things. And that's part of it. I'm not blaming you.
No.
But your attitude is the attitude of all these naysayers that talk about everything bad about public accounting. The economy, the world economy could not function without public accounting doing audits of financial statements. And you could name every penalty and every sanction, and it doesn't change the fact that the world business runs because of what CPAs do. We're not the principals, we're the recorders of the information, we're the reporters of it. We have a very essential role in the economy. We have people who love what they do, and we have people who want to do what the people who love what they do. But we have a lot of people, much more people don't like it. And you look at you and everybody else, and I give you the names of half the dozen people that you and I both know who look for everything bad that they could write. You read the Going Concern,
Yeah.
and they'll write anything bad about an accounting firm they'll write about.
I think there's a distinction between calling out the issues in the profession. Like I said, I love the profession. But on the flip side, we got
You don't sound like the cheerleader you should be, Yuri.
Here's the thing about that.
Never criticize a guy that's going to cut the.
I'm not cutting any of this.
Maybe look terrible.
I'm not cutting out any of this stuff. And the reason for that is because this raw conversation has to be had. There is a disconnect, because I think you're right. There's a ton of pluses in the profession, but we have a pipeline problem, and you can't deny that pipeline problem. That pipeline problem isn't because of naysayers. It's because the old school mentality, the toxic culture, and the stuff that is the issue is what has created this over the time. Now, one of the main things that we could talk about, like not talking about the billable hour as being a primary metric, that I think has led to a lot of the problem, is part of the things that we should talk about. So, like, just as an example, I'll give me being at these firms, and these firms being like, hey, you worked 65 hours last week, but your coworkers worked 80. And even though I was efficient and a lot more, I was a lot better at doing the work, but the comparison, the fact that my hours were lower than the other people's, were part of the problem. So to me, I guess
you're picking exceptions, and you're exaggerating situations. By the way, I understand you're going to do a webinar or a podcast with Scotty.
I did already, yeah.
You did it. I did 4 with Scotty. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
And one of the ones I did with Scotty,
Yeah.
I was on with Ron Bega talking about timesheets.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a proponent of timesheets.
Yeah,
Of course, he's totally against timesheets.
totally.
Timesheets are a tool. How you use it
Yes.
matters. There are old school people in accounting that make a lot of the rules now, but there are also a lot of young school people who are making changes. Also, which I don't understand because I'm not young, but if something is not working, or
Yeah.
something is done in a detrimental way, I don't know why it's not changed.
Because it's because of the mentality that you just mentioned. So I'm just going to throw this out there.
So those firms, but those are the firms that are not growing. Those are the firms that are not moving upward. By the way, I just did an analysis, which I'm going to post in Accounting Today, of the 10 firms that are below the Big Four on Accounting Today's 100 list. I don't want to say what it is, and I don't know when this will repeat, but it'll be in there it'll be in Accounting Today how I feel about.
Yeah.
There's a gap there, but there are always bad things. But the profession is thriving. We have a pipeline problem, but part of the pipeline problem is because the hours. Whatever you said, the hours, the attitude toward hours, the comparison, it's bad.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, the successful firms don't have those attitudes. They're unsuccessful firms. They're firms that are not growing. But the firms are all, the revenues are growing, the numbers of people are growing. I'm going to show a 10-year comparison in 2 weeks of the numbers of people in the profession. The pipeline is a problem. But there are more people still entering public accounting than ever before. Maybe not as much as we would like, but there are more people. Meanwhile, I think one of the big four firms just laid off this week, announced 1,500 layoffs. Maybe they're laying people off because they weren't good. Maybe they're laying off people because they want to cut their costs.
Yeah.
But the environment, it exists for growth, for excitement, for empowerment, for personal satisfaction, and for financial reward. It exists and it works. And the fact that the successful firms are there and they're growing.
Yeah.
And small firms are growing and small firms are successful. And you can measure success by how big the firm was, say, 5 or 10 years ago and how big they are today. If they're not growing, then you got these crapheads running the firms.
True.
And if they're growing, you got innovative thinkers running the firms because smart people are not going to put up with the crap. And the large firm, we only have statistics, certainly for the top 150 firms in the last issue of Accounting Today, and then you got the 500 firms from the other survey, but they're all growing. All the firms are growing. Now of course, there's mergers, there's growth through, but the total number, you take two firms with 1,000 people, put them together, and 3 years later, they can have more than 2,000 people. There's growth in the profession. Yeah, the pipeline is not so good. Part of the pipeline problem is very simple. The starting salaries are too low. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, our starting salaries were among the highest. Now we're among the lowest. Raise the damn salary. I never lost people. I quit a few jobs because of money. I told you about it.
Yeah.
No one ever quit me because of money. They may not have liked me.
Yeah.
They may have, but they didn't quit because of money because I paid them what they were worth. They worked for me for a year. At the end of the year, they got all this experience, all this knowledge. I paid them what they were worth. They didn't owe me a penny after a year because I taught them everything, and I better pay them what they're worth, or they're going to leave. They were a free agent.
I think to me, I want to clarify something as we wrap it up here, which is that
this will be too long. No one will watch it.
My whole thing is that I like to say what I say. I love the profession. I push it forward. I do think that there is a pivotal moment we're having here now, and yes, it seems to be thriving. Yes, it is. But if you see the messages I get from top performers, and I'm talking about partners, I'm talking about uprising senior managers, and I'm talking about high-performing seniors. If you see the messages that I always get, you would not think this profession is thriving. And these are not crapheads. These are top-performing people that are over it. But my whole point is here, which is to say, I want to bring a positive light to it, and I want to say that we have a huge potential here with the profession to take it to a place where we give the people what they want, we focus on the humans first, we put aside the culture, the toxic, the old school mentality, and re-envision things. And that's what a lot of us folks out there in the social media, in the disruptor space, in all that, talk about and bring up. It's not to say, hey, this is all negative, there's no way to fix it, goodbye. It's, hey, this is the issue, but let's work towards fixing that issue. Let's start rewarding the staff. Let's start taking care of them so we can bring more people in and change the narrative that we're seeing online.
I speak to 35 people a month that I don't know who call me. In fact, I mentioned a friend, someone you know, that I never met, and I helped him write his first article.
Yeah.
I get calls from all over the country, actually all over the world now. People have practice management problems. I talk to them for a half hour or so. And I get people who are upset they're not made partner. I get people who, one time I happened to take a call, I'm in my car, a guy wanted to know what kind of title he should ask for. And my wife said, that's what people ask you. Everybody that is called, not everybody, a lot of the people who've called me not happy about their growth, about their thing, don't deserve to grow. They didn't even deserve to work for me. In fact, one time I got 2 calls in a row, and I posted, this got to be more than 10 years ago, I posted on CPA Trend Lines, and I totally criticized one of the people. Totally, I mean, I didn't mention his name or anything, but I criticized him on the phone. So, of course, he thinks I'm not a nice guy. He'll never call me again. But I tell him what he has to hear. He's not, these people that are described, I'll show you people that are not good. I'll show you what's wrong with them. You're telling me they're winners. I'm telling you they're not winners.
Yeah.
And I'll go over point by point. If you give me 10 people and you tell me these are high performing winners, I'll prove to you that 9 of them are not. One of them is. No, I'll prove it to you.
We'll do a recap afterwards, offline.
You and I will do a recap. If I'm right, you pay for the lunch. If I'm wrong, I'll pay for the lunch.
I'll pay for the lunch regardless.
But I'm telling you, I've seen these people. I've had these people work for me. I talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
Guy calls me for a title. What kind of title? I mean, give me a break. I had a guy working for me. He begged me. I had my New York practice. He said, my daughter's getting married next month. I'm a senior accountant. I want to tell the people I'm a manager at the firm. Can I make him a manager? So I spoke to my partners. So we decided we didn't want to make, he wasn't a manager. So we said, okay, we'll give you a title field manager. He comes in a month, 2 weeks after the wedding. So, now that I'm manager, shouldn't I get a raise?
Yeah, well,
look,
I'm following.
A lot of what you said is valid. A lot of what I'm saying, or some of what I'm saying, I'm telling you, everything I'm saying, everything is valid. I could prove everything I'm saying. I can prove it. You can't prove most of what you're saying. Now listen, the profession is growing. Look, half of Withum's partners started with the firm. That's proof. Every firm, every one of the top 100 firms are growing. They're growing organically. They're growing mergers, but they're growing organically. The big four are all growing every year. The dollar revenue is growing. The numbers of people are growing. The offices are growing. The services are growing. Everything, the need for services is growing. This AI and all this other stuff has increased the need for people to interpret it and help the clients predict I'm using the numbers now. I'm meeting with clients to predict their future.
Yeah.
And it's easy. If you know how to look at the numbers, you get the right numbers. I took the top 100 list.
Yeah.
It's a nice list. I broke it into 3 segments. By breaking it into 3 segments, I had 3 different groups of accounting firms.
Yeah.
And that gives 3 different pictures of the growth of each one of those 3 groups.
We'll look out for that.
So I've been doing this with my clients for 50 years.
Yeah.
And we're getting more data now, and we're getting it quicker, and we're more reactive with the information. Accounting is growing. It's never been better, and it's going to get better.
And that I agree with.
And the naysayers are the malcontents that are not happy for whatever reason. Yeah. And some of their reasons, they're valid.
Yeah.
But
I think, and to me, it's bringing out those reasons. It's talking about them.
Yeah, because people don't read. You don't read an article saying everything is good.
Yeah.
No one's going to pick up. Oh, everything's good. I'm going to read You read the article. There's one guy does podcasts. I did a podcast with him, but I won't do any more with him. He looks for every opportunity to say bad things.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a big fan of his. Because again,
he's a smart guy and everything, but he's a naysayer. I don't like to deal with it. I like to deal with it.
Here's what I think we should agree on, and then we'll wrap it up with this, which is I think that calling out the things that are the issues, in my opinion, is not being necessarily a naysayer. You have to bring it up, because if you continue with and painting it as a rosy, everything is perfect, here's the reality. All these firms are going to grow. They're going to do everything you said. They're going to have the growth. You look in with a magnifying glass, and they got no staff, because the staff that value themselves simply won't stay. And I'm telling you this again. I know you're saying that the high performers. I can tell from your face how much you love what I just said. But the reality of it is that is where it is headed. I think that there's tremendous value. There's tremendous growth, and I personally think this is the best time to get into accounting, with the mentality that, and the hope to me that I want to reach, the people that are going to become partners to start making the shifts of change And with that, can you promote your book?
I just want to say one thing. You did say the mindset of a lot of the people running the firms has to change.
Yes.
But you're making that generalization for everybody. Buy my book.
Oh no. There you go. Promote it.
I got 100 stories, some of which you heard in this book, and it's cheap. You could read it for free if you have Kindle Unlimited.
Awesome. All right, I
Thanks
like
a
it.
lot. Good-
Thank you
good
so
talking
much.
to you.
This was a really good chat, and I think that having more of these chats is what it's all about. Thanks for coming on. I'll catch you on the next one.